Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Discover Your Spirit with me, Brenda Reading. I am your host. I am a registered medium with Lilydale Assembly, and this show is part of a series of shows that a bunch of us do live on Facebook and YouTube. And today I will be talking with a wonderful, wonderful guest, and I'm so glad to have you here. Her name is Christy Simoncelli, and she's going to be a presenter at Lilydale this year. She's got two classes coming up, and I'm going to read her bio to you all just to give you a little flavor of Christy before we let her talk. I know it's torture, right? Okay, so Christy Simoncelli, an MPH, is an astrologer, psychic medium, Reiki master, yoga teacher, and human design consultant. Founder of Hens Crossing in Hamburg, New York, she writes on Substack about her work. She weaves astrology, human design, and energy medicine with over 20 years in public health to bridge science and soul-centered healing. I love how you say that because so much of what we do at Lilydale is bridging the science of mediumship and spiritualism with the soul of us as human beings. And so I love how your bio just works right into it. So, Christy, I know you personally. I know that you've studied with various teachers in the area, one being Angie App. She's also a registered medium. And I think that's how I met you, was through Angie's course in mediumship. And so let's start there, okay? So what brought you to mediumship?
That's a loaded question, Brett. I've come to call it sort of my origin story because I don't know what else to say about it. Way back, well, first of all, when I was a kid, I mean, I think I was in my teens the first time I had a psychic reading. My mother was very into all things spiritual, and so I was invited to a party, house party, and the woman was a medium, but also an astrologer. So that was when I was like 15 years old. So I was like, oh, this is cool. I've had so many readings over the course of my life, but back in like 2014-ish, my health started to really torpedo. I was having a lot of challenges that really weren't solved by doctors. And I worked in cancer research for 20 years. So I was like, well, we must see a doctor. This is what we do. And through the course of time and trial and error, I was led to energy healers. Highly skeptical. What is going on here? I don't understand what any of this stuff is. But it worked for me and it was much more effective for me. And turns out all I really was sensitive. So that's why the doctors and their pills and stuff didn't really help me. So in the process, I changed my lifestyle. I quit drinking. I had to change my diet. I started with yoga where I used to teach spinning. So I really had to modify my lifestyle quite a bit. And as I did, I started having more awareness of the space around me, so to speak. In fact, it was one night back in 2017, I had a dream, or I call it a dream, where my long dead stepfather, no, he's not my stepfather, he's my father-in-law, my husband's dad, who was not my husband at the time, but he came into my dream and basically stuck his hand out and said, hi, I'm Eddie. And I, of course, knew who he was because I'd seen his picture many times. And I was like, hi, like, hello. And he came and chatted with me a bit and mostly wanted me to give a hug to my husband. And so when I woke up, I did, and I told him so. And he'd been dead since my husband was a 10-year-old boy. And
Wow, sounds like a visitation.
yeah, for sure. And he came back a number of times. And it was right around then that I had started exploring Reiki because this was part of what was helping me heal. And I always want to know how everything works, right? So,
Mhm.
so when this man appears in my dreams and starts telling me things that I can later validate with my husband or, his family members, and I all of a sudden have information about things that were so small and random, but that he knew about, I was like, well, this is beyond. I don't really know what quite to do with it. So that was kind of what piqued my interest. I was already interested in this kind of a realm. And it was around then that I started to take classes with Angie here and there, just like a workshop here and there, as opposed to like a training with her, because I was just so unsure what to do with this or what it was what was even happening. And so
Mhm.
that was sort of how things started. But it wasn't until I think like in 2019 where I took a formal mediumship training program with Angie, and that just changed everything. So here's how we are. Here's what's going on.
Yeah, it's amazing. You don't know what you don't know, right? Until
Yeah.
you get into it, and then you find out that there's reasons for all of it, and there's a
Yeah.
mechanics to it, and
Yes.
there's steps to learn it, and
Sure.
that everyone has it. It's
Hmm.
just, we don't all open up at the same time, and we don't all have to use it either. It's a
Right. Yeah.
personal choice,
Yep.
because a lot of responsibility comes with
Absolutely.
this personal choice, which you know all about.
Hmm.
Um, so I wanted to ask you, uh, as well as the mediumship, uh, you also teach human design and you do uh, readings, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Sessions with human
Hmm.
design. And this summer, that will be the classes that you are focusing on at
Yes.
Lilydale.
Hmm.
So the first class is July 31st. And I don't know that it's on the website yet. So this is like, but maybe by the time this views, it will be, but it's still a
Okay.
sneak peek into the catalog. Christy will be teaching Human Design 101. And and then the second class will be August 28th, the synergy of human design and astrology.
Yes.
So it sounds like this is a big topic with a lot of information. So why don't you tell us a little bit, if it's possible, about human design? What is human design? And I will just
Yeah.
let you take over.
Yeah. And some folks, some people are aware of it, some folks are not. It's not been around as long as, say, astrology has, that kind of a thing. But it uses astrology. Basically, it's a channeled mystical system. So if you've ever had to take like a Myers-Briggs test or a disc analysis kind of a thing, it kind of is a spiritual version of that, if you will. It's kind of the easiest way I can explain it to you. It's a really great tool for self-understanding and self-awareness, only you don't have to answer a bunch of questions. You just need your birth information like you would for your astrology chart. So it's a composite system in that it includes information from the chakra system that we know are chakras, and then astrology, the I Ching is included, Kabbalah wisdom from ancient Jewish mysticism, and then quantum physics. So it's kind of this pileup of all these old ancient systems plus then the quantum physics. And so it is quite fascinating and complicated. That again was something that I grew up with astrology. My mother studied astrology, and we always cast charts at the table for babies that were born in my family. And so I knew astrology growing up, but I had not heard of human design. It was probably in 2018. So all this stuff was happening around the same time, which for those watching who are astrology savvy was around my time of my Uranus opposition. And so it just makes all the sense. So I
No, you're gonna have
found,
to stop for a second. Your Uranus opposition, okay?
yes,
So Uranus is the surprise, right? The
yes,
surprise
the
planet.
surprise
So
planet.
yeah, so why
Yeah.
is that significant in this
So this,
conversation?
so
Sorry.
Uranus is about rebellion and freedom and surprise and shock and all of that sort of thing. But it really ultimately is about authenticity. And so it takes about 84 years to get around your birth chart if we think about astrology. And about age 42 to 44, depending on your chart, people experience an opposition where Uranus gets far enough around the chart where it can kind of oppose itself. And when it does that, people are pushed, more or less, I don't know how else to say it, into things that create their more authentic path.
Hmm.
Some people get divorced. Some people learn a new language. Some people learn about human design and start talking to dead people like I am. And, this is like everybody's experience is different. And I see it, it's such a common thing for people to finally come see me as a client. And what is interesting is in human design, it sort of sets up this other kind of path as well. So things shift within the human design chart, much like they do in astrology. But if I were to sum it up in a sentence, it's really a transit about you finding your most authentic self, if that makes sense. And so even though these things were not on my radar prior to this, all of a sudden these things kind of got woken up for me. And in fact, in my chart, I know if anything's happening to my natal Uranus in my birth chart, I know it's going to have something to do with this, with the spirituality and
Oh,
the mediumship and that kind of a thing. So it's always an interesting post for me as to where this sits and how it shows up. Now, that's not to say
so
everybody's or their Uranus opposition is the same. They're not, but they are a time to become your more authentic self.
so there's so many people when they come, sometimes people are looking for guidance, like, am I on the right path?
Hmm.
Right? They'll come for a reading, or they'll just want, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like,
Yeah.
what
Hmm.
is my soul mission and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So it sounds to me like this human design that you will be teaching this summer and that you work with all the time is a piece of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That if someone comes to you and you do this for them, um, they can see in front of them, in black and white, this may be a part of your path and a part of your mission here,
Yeah.
on earth, and why you're here. And I think anything that helps us find that, I mean, like with
Yeah.
anything, mediumship readings, advice from your attorney, whoever it is, it's like you have to take it and digest it and
Yeah.
decide that it feels right and all that,
Sure.
but I think it's wonderful that this is another tool, right? It's
Yeah.
another
It's
tool.
we always say in human design, we're not trying to force you into anything or convince you of anything, but there's so much truth in how it is shown and how it plays out that there's people tend to have like a full body knowing, and it's like a full body yes as you're listening to an analysis of your gifts, your talents, the places you might get held back, those kinds of things that can be found and discussed from the human design chart. And I always use Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in my human design classes because Rudolph was born with this special nose, right? This was his special gift. And most people tend to, much like Rudolph, cover up those sensitive special parts first, just as a result of conditioning that we go through in life. Oh, the kids at the playground said that was silly, so put your nose away, Rudolph, or your dad said you shouldn't have that, right? Or whatever it is. And we start to bury our natural gifts. And so what human design does is it helps you see those gifts are right here. Like the gifts are laid out and helps you create a way to step back into them. So you're here doing the most special things, much like Rudolph when Santa came and asked him to fly his sleigh.
That's a wonderful comparison
Yeah,
and
yeah.
explanation, especially when there's so much. So in learning how to do the human design readings, being
Mhm.
that you are you Capricorn or Aquarius by any chance? It's like they have to know all the things.
I'm an Aries.
Okay.
I'm an Aries. I have a Gemini moon. I have a very active Gemini. All my Gemini is in my 12th house because I'm a Cancer rising. So
Mm.
Saturn, Mars, my moon, and South Node are all in the 12th house. But I would say, as far as the systems piece, I have Venus and Aquarius in the 8th house. So I love the new. I love the newfangled. I love
Yeah.
that piece in that space where I think it can really help people transform, which is beautiful and lovely. So,
See, so that's why you're the astrologer and I'm not, because I don't know. I was just taking a guess there, but being that you said that you had done cancer research, I mean, it takes a special brain and a special mindset and an investigatory,
yes.
right,
Hmm.
thought process.
Yes.
So it's like
Hmm.
you're doing the same thing. The investigatory thought process. Is that even a word, Christy? I think
I
it
think
is.
it is.
Yeah.
We're, yeah,
Yeah. If
investigatory.
not, we just made one.
Yeah, we
So
just made up a
yes.
word. It's
So
perfect.
yeah, what the heck. So yeah, so you're using that same process when you're doing these charts for people and readings,
Hmm.
so that you're helping them investigate into their own self,
Yeah.
um, who and what they can be, right?
Yeah.
Not only what they are, but who and what they can be, which I think is
Yes.
a wonderful gift that you're
It's
giving to
really
people.
liberating for people when they really step into it. And I've seen so many clients just really, it's almost like I'm giving them, and I'm not by any means, they have permission to do whatever they want, but in hearing what I say sometimes and how I can translate this for them, that it's almost like they get permission to go do that thing that they've been longing to do, or the thing that makes them light up or be their most, oh, I always wanted to do that. and I can verify, hey, it's all right here. You should be doing that. That's why you're pulled to it. There's a famous astrologer who says if it's in your heart, it's in your chart. And I would say the same thing is true about human design, that if there's something calling you or pulling you, it's gonna keep coming for you. And you don't have to answer the door, of course, but if you can, that'd be great. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I'm sure there's some surprises in those charts that you do for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, like they might find out things that they never considered,
yeah.
or it could be something they already know,
Yeah, I mean, in your chart, for example, I know that you're a projector, which makes you it's a more rare energy type, but those are people who are really here to be guides for other people. So it's natural that you fall into the work that you do. You're really here to help other people, and your information and input about someone's life will be best received when asked for. So someone makes a Brenda, I'd like to come see you for an appointment, and then you see them and then they ask the questions and you can answer them. It's so much better received than if you were just walking around going, hey, you should be doing this, right? So that's a projector at a very basic level, but there's a lot there. Projectors will not really thrive in a really high pressure 40, 50, 60 hour a week job. Projectors need some downtime and some
Mm.
rest, and they work best in spurts. Like I can go, and then I have to take a break. I have to go take a walk around the block. I have to go decompress, and that's something that a lot of projectors were never given permission to do in life. And very often around age 40-ish, projectors reach a point of burnout if they don't know those things about
Ding,
themselves.
ding, 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 ding. That
Yeah,
happened to
sure.
me.
Yeah, and that's I mean
Yes.
about
And
30% of people really don't have that endless fuel tank.
mhm.
So
And
knowing that
also
would be great.
giving ourselves the permission, right? Knowing this about
Yes.
yourself. And
Yes.
because it look how long it takes to figure out that you are that way, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I would have had you in my life, or someone like you to tell me I was a
Yeah.
projector, 10 years before I burn out, then, because sometimes it's like you're okay helping other people, but helping ourselves is last. And then we feel
So
guilty
hard.
for having to take the rest time.
Yes.
And that was
Yes.
one of the biggest things I had to learn was and this was without the human design. It was because of physical illness. It was like
Hmm.
I'm allowed to rest.
Yeah.
It's okay to rest.
Yeah.
Everybody's not the same. Some
Absolutely
people
not.
need a nap, and it's okay. And giving myself permission to be who I am,
Yeah.
and so I feel like you telling me that this you've given me, reminding me, it's very poignant. That's what's happening today, reminding me because I'm getting over this cold, which I think
Yeah.
I got because I was pushing myself too much. Um,
Hmm.
my vibration got lowered and bingo. So it's very timely that they were having this little
You know
reminder.
how it is, Brenda. No
Yes,
coincidences,
it's like,
right?
yeah, the universe just knocks you in the head. And it's like, yes, I am a projector, but my projector needs to rest at
Yeah.
times. So
And if you were a
yeah,
projector raised by generator parents who did not ever rest, then it's not gonna feel okay to you until you kind of work through that, right? And that's part of it. One of my favorite things is when I have clients come in and they start asking about their kids. And if there's a child who's a projector or a manifestor, or, one of these people who needs those breaks, it's like everything just changes in their household because all of a sudden we're going to give this child that space they need, and all of a sudden everything flows better, right? So I can't imagine how lovely it would be for every child to have parents who understood them energetically so that they could be supported as best they could. That just feels lovely, right? So
oh,
that's the goal if we could
yeah,
go that far. So
especially as a grandparent now, because I see the differences in the different grandchildren and how they respond to, more sleep, less sleep, more
sure.
pressure, less pressure. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah,
And not that their parents don't see it, they do see it, but they're in it, and so I'm more of an observer than
sure.
a,
Yeah.
participant.
Hmm.
And so we're talking about projectors and manifestors. Would you, I mean, we have time. Would you like to list some of those characteristics here just for our audience so that when
Sure.
they come to
Yeah.
see you or when they come to your class, when you say
Yeah.
that, they'll be, oh yeah, she talked about that.
Yeah, so the projector we addressed, projectors make up about 20% of the population. And projectors, we like to think of them as like the CEO. You know, this is while you have the boss energy, you don't necessarily have to be at every meeting, right? So like the the draw is towards assisting these other folks with your guidance because projectors have such a beautiful way of just knowing what people need, and they have that bird's eye view that a lot of folks don't, can take in a scene really easily and say, this is what's going to fix this situation, let me help you, and then I'm going to go take a nap while you all work it out, right? And so the people you're really here to guide are the generators and the manifesting generators. Now those two groups of people together make up about 70% of the population. So they're similar, as my husband would say, same company, different division. So they're similar in that they have a defined sacral center, which is the most powerful motor center. So the sacral ties in the Kabbalah, the chakra piece. If those folks are doing work they love, they will thrive. They can go on for days and days. They are very happy. They can get lost in activity. They're just in a beautiful place. That's what generators are here to do, is ultimately to make joy for themselves and others, right? If they're doing work they don't love, their light kind of goes dim, right? And so when the light goes dim, they can feel like wet paint, flat piece of toast, call it whatever you want. But they don't feel like they, I always like to think of the little mer people from Little Mermaid, where Ursula the Sea Witch has them all like, she sucks their soul out and they're like, "Meh," you know,
Oh,
the
yeah,
bottom
yeah.
of the ocean. That's sort of like a generator, a manifesting generator who's doing things they don't want to do. So I always say to people, I'm not everybody has the pleasure to love their job. So if you don't love your job, have a hobby, volunteer, do
Yes.
something that lights that light up for you. Because I always compare those folks to like a lighthouse. If a lighthouse is in the harbor and it's happy and the light is lit, the ships know where to come. They come into the harbor. Think of those ships like the opportunities, the jobs, the relationships, the opportunities that people desire and wish for. That's what generators are here. They're lighting it up. But when it's not lit up, nobody knows where to find you, right? So think of it like magnetism. So for those folks, it's really critical that they're in that space where they can light the light. And so what makes manifestor generators a little different than the generators is that the manifesting generators are much more, I would say, it's we call them nonlinear. So they don't necessarily do things in order. They talk fast, they think fast, they skip steps. They tend to be more on the fly. They get bored easily. Josh Allen is a manifesting generator, just as an example.
Oh,
Which sometimes is why it might be terrifying to watch because he's like, but they have this instinct and this knowing, like, just got to do this. This is my thing now. Because for both of those types, the bodily energy is so essential. That's like the pull of what draws you to do the thing. So manifesting generators are people who maybe are reading 6 books at one time. They maybe have interests that don't line up. I might be into like, bricklaying and archery and also, collecting feathers. I don't know, like things that have nothing to do with each other. And so they're just here to be multi-passionate, multi-interested, and they just kind of pivot from thing to thing. And it's okay because, again, the world has not taught us that that's okay. You finished the book. Why don't you just finish that book before you read the next one? I mean, I'm a manifesting generator, and I just want to.
I tell.
I like to have a piece of nonfiction to pick at. I like to have a good set, like fluff story to keep my, if I'm feeling low, I can just pick it up. I have many books open at one time, and that's just how I was built as opposed to being, oh, she's a flake. She can't commit to anything. I do. I commit to lots of things. The trouble with generators and manifesting generators is they need really strong boundaries because they have this capacity to work, but they don't have to do everything simply because they're invited to do it, right? And so
Yeah.
that's that piece. Those folks together, like I said, they're each about 35% of the population. They are guided by our projector friends. So every generator, manifesting generator, needs a good projector in their life to help them when they're feeling lost. And then we have our manifestors, which I sort of touched on. Manifestors are much less common energy type. So they're about 8 to 9% of the population. They also, like projectors, work best in spurts. They need breaks. They are the only ones here, though, that are really built to just have ideas, throw them out, and then go take a nap. Like they're just here to very specifically design and create and come up with ideas and then hand it off to the generators and manifesting generators to do the work. So these very much are very specific individuals. They are not for everyone. And I say that, and of course, none of us are for everyone, but manifestors have a very specific way about them. And both of my children, in fact, my two kids that I gave birth to, plus one of my stepdaughters, are manifestors. So to have five
Wow.
five kids between the two of us and three of them are manifestors. I'm very savvy with the manifestors flow. They just have to do what they want to do. And a manifestor who is not given permission, even to themselves, to do what they want to do is just not going to be happy. They're going to be angry, they're going to feel frustrated. They get really kind of, I would say, off path if they're not doing what they want to do. And so I didn't realize this till my kids were 18 years old. I wish I knew much earlier on in life. It would explain so much of what I experienced as a parent. They don't, not to say they don't care what I think, but like they have their own set that they must do. And so manifestors just
Oh,
have to do their thing.
I have to get my kids and my grandkids done. I
Yeah.
have to make an appointment with you because it just,
Yeah.
I mean, I've done charts on my kids, astrology charts,
Yeah.
the one you get for free at Astrolab and all that,
Yeah.
which gives you a little bit of a peek under the tent, doesn't really
Yeah.
go into it too much.
Yeah.
But this human design thing, it might be nice to at least know if they're manifestors. I think I can tell my son is a projector, I feel. But yeah, so we'll see.
You can really tell. There's one final type which we didn't discuss, which
Oh,
is
okay.
the reflector. Reflectors are highly uncommon. They only make up about 1% of the population. I bet you in my hundreds and hundreds of client charts, I probably have like five reflectors that I've come across over, and I always get excited when I meet one because they're so fascinating. They are deeply fascinating people. I always think of them as like the canary in the coal mine. And so they have a wonderful way of assessing a space. They're very sensitive to their environment. They're very sensitive to the people they're around. They are full of beautiful ideas. They really need to, every day is different for a reflector because they're so, even the sky will be more dictate things for them. I had one client, one of my first reflector clients, who didn't know anything about this, and she was maybe in her 60s, and she told me that for a long time she'd been tracking where the moon was because she knew on certain days she just didn't feel good and other days she did. And that's exactly what reflectors, they literally can be influenced by the moon at any given time. And so I found that
Wow.
fascinating that she was doing the thing that she was already kind of set up for in terms of her environment. But they have wonderful minds, beautiful ideas, really, really interesting energy types. I'm pretty convinced that Sean McDermott was one. He still would be one, but I'm about 95% sure that I don't have his birth time, but I'm pretty close to that. But even look at if this is the case, which I do believe it is, the man came in and saw, I'm going to clean up the swampy, locker room. We're going to have character players. We're going to build a family. Reflectors love to build a family. They love to have a good environment around them, whether it's colleagues or otherwise. And so it's,
And then you got a manifesting generator just hitting it up on the fly, right?
yeah, giving us all a little anxiety. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but that's the beauty, right? Is the reflector is got such a good sense of people and environments and things. They're wonderful in companies because they're like having I don't know, like having your own little like medium for the company or something. Like it's like the
Medium.
Oracle. I
Yeah.
can see it all.
Yeah.
I see it
Yeah.
all. So really interesting
Wow.
folks.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like and that like the world needs all
Yeah.
of these,
Hmm.
and that they all come together. And so I can imagine if you were building a team, right,
Hmm. Yeah.
at in a business or whatever, and
Yeah.
and then you wanted to, and so they use those. I think I'm an INFJ, okay, in
Okay. Yeah.
whatever that thing is,
I
but
think I might be too, Brenda. Oh,
yeah, but
interesting.
it's like you might want to know if those people were manifestors, manifesting generator, right? The
Yeah.
idea people and
Hmm.
the projectors, like if you're putting your team together so that you
Yes.
have a bunch of all of it. Because if
Yes.
you have all doers and no knowers, that's not good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And vice
Or
versa.
an
Yeah.
all knowers and no doers, that's even worse. So
Yeah.
nothing
It's
gets
it's
done.
so interesting. We actually do I was there's a whole course in human design that I've taken to study how to work with teams, and we look at like specific components. So yes, energy type, which we just discussed, is a piece of it, but we look at like what specific traits, because there's traits that are really important to teams. So if we know one component is missing, is that something we can hire for? Can we get a consultant to fill that piece in, or do we really need to think about who might add that to the
Oh,
mix for
that's
us?
just fascinating.
Yeah, and you can do that with families too, not so much to replace somebody, but to get a sense of like, what
Sorry,
does
you're out.
you don't fit our bill. We need a good manifester here. But to see where there might be deficits in a family. So like, if a family doesn't have anybody who's got a good fiscal mind, maybe we got to look outside for that. We might need a, financial support person, or if we have somebody who loves to keep the family lore and the history going, but we don't have anybody who can, think about the future, then we need to kind of think about, we maybe need to work with someone. But what's also interesting in families and in teams is looking at where people might clash so you can kind of understand each other. I do this with relationships too. I do a lot more couple work, where people, I had this one couple I loved. They came in and they were all holding hands and cute the whole time. And everything was great until I got to the part where we talked about their authority, which has a lot to do with how they make decisions. And the woman had emotional authority and the man had sacral authority. The sacral authority is like your gut instinct. You just know it. This is what it is. It doesn't change over time. And the emotional authority, people need days sometimes to work through a big problem. And so I got to that point and I'm like, she's going to need more time with decisions. And he dropped her hand. I was like, oh, everything takes her so long. I don't know why she can't just figure it out. And I was like, because you feel it in your body, and she's got to go through every feeling she's ever had to figure out if this is the right answer or not. And she's like, I told you. So those kind of things come up, but just understanding that about your partner can be really critical. So you're like, okay, she needs her time. That's it. Otherwise, that person doesn't they feel rushed. They feel, they're nervous, they're unsettled. And anybody can be with anybody, types or all these things together, but it's just a matter of understanding each other's gifts and talents so that you can kind of see where there might be, oh, we might not get along here, but we do great over here. Right. So it's really
Wow.
interesting to look
So,
at the
Christy,
dynamics. Yes.
it's like you can just spew this stuff out like it's, you're in it.
Yeah.
You're in it to
Hmm.
win it, girl. So it's like it
Yeah,
sounds
I've
to
been
me
studying
if
a long time. So
if anyone, is interested in learning more about human design,
come to my class.
or
Yeah.
yeah, come to the class. But Christy is also you can find her on her website, and it is www.hens, Hens crossing, CROSSING.com. You're
Yes.
also on Facebook
Yes.
and on Instagram. And not
And my
only does
Substack. Yeah, my
oh
Substack as
yes,
well. Yeah.
Substack, that's where your writing is. It's
Hmm.
beautiful. And it's not, you also do astrology, right?
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
do astrology charts for people,
Hmm.
and you also do mediumship for
Yes.
people. So
Hmm.
and so how does the human design, and how does it relate to spirituality? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's so I started seeing clients first doing mediumship before I did anything else, right? And so I would sit with clients, and you know what this is like. I have a very strong sense that you should be this, or that this is coming for you, or what's the timeline look like, or these kinds of things. And then when I started to learn more about these tools and how they can really fit into someone's path, spirit actually will show me my work with spirit is very metaphorical. I get a lot of weird, like, it's
Symbols.
almost like a weird dream or something sometimes where these things just really don't make sense and I just have to say them out loud and they're like, oh yeah. Um, but they show me like where someone's kind of not being true to themselves or where they're sort of falling off the path a little. And then I can point back to these charts and say, hey, this is what this is all about. And if I look at, part of what is so fascinating about human design is that we have our chart that is our astrology chart, the one we all know that we're born with our birth chart. And if you don't know, we can figure it out. And then there's also a secondary chart in human design, which is from about 90 days before the birth of a child. And that is what sets up what we call the magnetic monopole, which is like the kind of the personality crystal. I don't know how else you want to say it. Like the seat of the soul. This is where this information passes through. And it creates this sort of like passive underlying chart. So it's actually like we have two charts, the one that we know that we act with, and then the other one that's a little bit more under the cover, if you will, that is still there. Like I'm a Capricorn on that chart. So if that lines up for you more importantly. And so it's a combination of those two charts that really makes up the human design piece. And One of my brothers is an engineer, and his favorite thing to say is like, well, what if someone has a C-section, or what if someone's born,
Yes.
3 weeks early? How does it know? And I'm like, because it knows when you're going to be born, right? And so that to me, that's just divine, right? That's just coming right from divinity and from spirit. So that's the piece I always say, I had twins, they were scheduled C-section, they were a minute apart, there's so much that's the same in their energy. But even within astrology, you can be a higher and lower octave of any one component of your chart, and it makes such a difference. And with human design, it's like, am I stepping into the fullest parts of this, or am I stepping more into the fear-based sections of this, or the shadow, if you will, of this energy? And it gives you permission to just try it all on. And that's the biggest thing about human design, is it's really meant to be an experiment. You're really meant to sort of like feel into it, try these things out, try this approach, see how that works, and really get back to your Rudolph self with your shiny nose, whatever your shiny nose is. If it's
And who
mediumship
doesn't,
or it's some other
yeah,
talent you have. Yeah.
who doesn't love their Rudolph self, that got his
So
all
many
his
people.
confidence back, and he was
Yeah.
just helping everybody with
His
his
hero's
light.
journey. Rudolph was on a hero's journey, right? So
Yes.
same
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Yes. So I just want to thank you, Christy, for taking the time to, because there's a lot going on in the human design,
Oh
but I
yeah.
want to say to people, if you can't tell, Christy is a very dynamic teacher, and if you don't understand something, you just ask, she explains it all, and so don't be afraid to take your first human design class if you want to come to Lilydale and take it, or see
Yeah.
her before then, because it's not
Yeah.
till July. Um,
Mhm.
but you will come away with a learning about yourself, and maybe with some feelings of, oh, so that's why I do this, or how maybe this is why I'd like to try this, or maybe how to give yourself more grace, right?
Yes.
Which for me, that knowing that I need my rest, and it's okay to rest, and don't feel small because you can't go like an Energizer Buddy
Yes.
for ad infinitum,
That's
and
Projector 101.
yeah, and
I can keep up with you. Watch me.
yes, and it was so liberating in that respect, so
Yeah.
there's always something that you can learn from these classes. So
Yeah.
Christy, it's Christy Simoncelli, and henscrossing.com. I want to thank you for coming on my
Well, thank you
show.
for having me.
Yes, and for the rest of you, in a couple weeks after this, I'll be back, and by then, I think our catalog should be online, and you're probably seeing a lot of the Facebook events starting to come out. We'll have a nice programming information for you on the new website. We're working on a new website too, so maybe when I come back in a couple weeks, we can take a deeper delve into some of the other classes that are going on, and also get back to the readings I like to do for you all, those spot readings at the end of the show. So I just want to say to everyone, take care of yourself in the next 2 weeks. Give yourself some grace. Christy, I'm sure I'll be seeing you. Thank you again,
Yes. Thank you,
and
Brenda.
have a good night.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.